I'd like to welcome everyone out to the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, June 6, 2019. We'll actually call the meeting to order, and we'll start off with a pledge of allegiance by John Brims.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. We do have a full quorum today. Turn to the Planning Commission to see if there's any conflicts of interest with any of the items today. Seeing none, we'll actually proceed on to the administrative items. We actually have two items on tonight for public hearing. Item 2.1 is one of them. The public hearing policy and procedures, I'm just going to read through that so everyone's aware. And the purpose of public hearings is to allow citizens to address items on the agenda. Citizens requesting to address the commission will be asked to complete a written comment form and present it to Wendy Thorpe, Deputy City Recorder. In general, the chair will allow an individual 2 minutes to address the commission. A spokesperson recognized as representing a group in attendance may be allowed up to 5 minutes. And this policy applies to all public hearings. We'll start off with item 2.1, which is a request for a preliminary plat approval for an 8-lot subdivision, and we'll turn to city staff.
Hold on, we're trying to get it up on your screen. There we go. All right, so as you said, this is an 8-lot subdivision. This property is zoned at 8.25. It's up in the Fort Harriman area, so it's kind of surrounded.
We don't have ours, we don't have it here.
You don't have it? Oh,
There we go, we're good, thank you.
yay, okay.
Awesome.
So again, it's about 5 acres, and he's asking for 8 lots. This is the layout here. So again, one larger lot, and then in the back, and then 7 other lots. They had a DRC, and they had a neighborhood meeting. We talked about this a little in the work meeting, so I'll bring up the detention. They will most likely be able to do their detention. There's an existing pond, and I can show it to you here, right here. Nope, you can't see it on that screen.
There we go.
There you go, here. Existing pond here that they may have to do some work to. They can use it there. If not, they will need to use one of their lots.
So you guys own that existing pond you just
Yeah.
pointed out, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
If not, they'll need to put a detention on lot 8. Or 1, I assume it'd be lot 8. So they'll need to work through that with engineering. I don't think there was anything else. Again, the density is not an issue. They're well within the density in the 8.25 zone. Standard subdivision, so standard setbacks, and our single-family design standards for the houses. Yeah, it is near the hillside overlay zone, but it is not in the hillside overlay zone, kind of comes up here. So it is not in the hillside overlay zone. Yep, they'll need to do some improvements on Cabin Trail here, and then obviously this new cul-de-sac.
Thank you, Brent. Is there anything else?
I don't think that's it.
All right, then we'll ask the applicant to come up if he's present, and just state your name and then any additional items that might be of interest.
My name's Charles Riddle. I don't really have anything of interest. I mean, we didn't want to go too small on these lots. We want to keep it similar. I mean, I actually live in the neighborhood. I think I'm like 300 yards away over on a log home lane. So we just wanted to be able to build it and put a little bit bigger house for us. And then maybe bring like some family and some stuff like that out there that want to move out there. So that's why we're looking for this.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll let you sit down. We'll actually open it for the public hearing, and we may ask you to come back up for additional questions in a little bit.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. if there's any comments by anyone here.
Steve Haney. I have a lot that touches the corner there, and I really like the proposal that Chuck has. I'm looking forward to getting it going. I think it's great.
Thank you. If there's no other remarks, at this time we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll turn to the Planning Commission for any comments.
So my only comment is, can they subdivide in the future Lot 4 into 2 lots?
That is an excellent question, Adam. One that I do not have an answer to yet.
Which is why I
But we're working on
recommend
it.
a ninth requirement that Lot 4 remains 78,240 square feet.
Okay.
I'm sure.
All right?
I'm
Any-
always consistent.
Any other remarks?
I just had a question. Did we get any notes back from was there a neighborhood meeting?
The staff report was written before the meeting actually happened, just the way the scheduling worked out. We have those minutes. There weren't really any concerns of too much levity brought up. It was a pretty straightforward, sounds like Chuck was able to answer all their questions, and kind of any concerns were put at ease. Is that correct?
Okay. All right, then, if there's no other remarks, we can turn to the Planning Commission for a motion.
I move to approve item 2.1 with staff's 8 recommendations with a ninth requirement that Lot 4 remains 78,240 square feet.
I'll second it.
There's a motion by Adam and a second by Lauren. And we'll start with a vote on this side with Lauren.
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Kobe?
Yes.
And Adam?
Yes.
And that passes. We'll now move on to item 3.1, which is a rezone of 5 acres, request from A1 to R110 for Windrose subdivision. This is a public hearing as well, but we'll turn to city staff to begin.
Okay, this subdivision by Symphony Homes, they are requesting a 12, or essentially they're requesting a rezone to the R110 zone, which basically means the only limit on density in that zone is however many can fit in 10,000, with 10,000 square foot minimum size lots. The general plan calls for agricultural residential in this location. However, our ordinance explicitly prohibits anyone from asking to rezone to the A.25 zone. Now, you can argue that he could ask for the 8.5 zone, but that's really restrictive compared to the general plan as well. What he's asking for is consistent with Sunset Point located to the north, both in density and in zoning. It is consistent with the general plan's guidance on density. It falls right in the middle of the suggested range. However, it does not meet the agricultural criteria of the general plan, which calls for agricultural residential. But then the other thing, and if this matters to you, is it's not likely. I have included a site plan of his 12-lot subdivision in your packet. With the lot sizes, there's no half-acre lots. There's not likely to be any agricultural use of any significance there, really, anyway. I have outlined in your staff report, there are some things that would be lost if it was a residential zone versus an agricultural zone. They couldn't ask for an agricultural home occupation. They would lose some animal privileges that the agricultural zones have that the residential zones do not. It would still be allowed to have chickens, but it couldn't have horses, couldn't have medium-sized animals like goats, Those are the main differences. The primary thing is, how do you view the general plan's guidance in this case? Do you view it as they need to be in strict adherence to it, or do you view it as a guide that can be modified or suited to individual needs somewhat? That's entirely up to you.
Thank you, Craig. If the applicant's here, we'll ask them to come up. And if you don't mind stating your name, and then just if you want to elaborate on anything else with this development.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Russ Wilson. I work for Symphony Homes. That concept plan that was brought up, we actually have a different design. We've submitted a preliminary plan without a cul-de-sac. It's actually a through street.
It's probably what's in our packet. We have one in our packet that does not cul-de-sac, actually.
Maybe the one that's in your packet. The reason we're applying for the R110 zone is we feel it would be consistent with the Sunset Point neighborhood to the north. The average lot size in our subdivision's a little over 13,600 square feet. I believe that Sunset Point is quite a bit less than that. They're at about 11,600 square feet. The other reason for the design and the zoning request that we presented is because of the constraints of the property. A couple constraints that we're working with are lining up the center street with the intersection of the Halls Crossing Drive. We're required to do that, and there's actually a sewer outfall that we need to use that's stubbed into this property from the Sunset Point neighborhood, and so we're kind of constrained on lining up lot lines to get that sewer out to the north. And then the other is the other restraint we're working with is a retention basin that's what we need to have on the far east side of the property. All of our lot sizes are obviously over the 10,000 square foot minimum. Like I said, the average lot size is over 13,000. And then our lot widths on our proposed design are about 25% greater than the requirement as well. And so we just thought it would be a good fit for this area to have this zoning and to provide lots for our home building that will allow us enough width and depth to fit our homes. We build a little bit larger homes, a lot of Rambler floor plans. We need the width to get those floor plans on there, but we don't want too much width because a lot of people prefer to have deeper lots rather than wider lots so they can have a larger backyard.
Thank you. If you want to have a seat. We'll now open the public hearing at this time, if there's any comments to be made.
Excuse me. My name's Brooks Clark. I live just on the south side of this, on the flag lot, on the back side, directly against this parcel. I'd like to know what the master plan shows for that area. I was trying to follow what you had to say about master plan, and I had a hard time following that because I don't do this every day. You guys do.
And for this, you can make some comments, and then we'll be able to discuss this among ourselves. Question answer is not really the format for this right now.
Okay, thank you. Me and my neighbors and I should say, we have animals. This is agricultural ground. I came a few weeks ago to listen to this hearing and planning, and it had been pulled from the agenda. But while I was here listening, one of the neighbors commented on how his horses were directly affected by homes in the neighborhood. And that's my concern, is I've been in this area for over 25 years. I've been around a long time here, seen a lot of growth. I'm not anti-growth. I know this guy paid a lot of money for this and he wants to maximize what he can. And with all due respect, I wish not to offend him. So I don't know about fences. I don't know about things of that nature, what's going to go on here, whether they're going to match what's going to happen with the subdivision to the north, how they have a nice wide rock pathway and sidewalk, if that's going to be in front of this property is one of my questions. I don't know if that means anything here. The other thing is the retention pond. just to the west there was a subdivision put in up Hull Crossing. They have 2 retention ponds. They're big, huge weed patches. I don't know what the policy is for that. Nobody takes care of them. I don't know if the city's responsible. I don't know if it's an HOA. I don't know how that's going to be handled in the future with this parcel. But it's just sort of a shame that this beautiful area is being developed and to have these eyesores like that. Now, that's probably hypocrisy. I have eyesores on my property too, but just something to look at. So my opinion is, you know, I know there's going to be homes on there, and that's fine with me, but I would soon have less homes and more homes. We are bordering a property that people do have animals and those things. And thanks for the job that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Commissioner Burbert, I'd like to read in the record for the consideration of the Planning Commission an email that I received from Sherry Orn. She stated this morning in an email, she says, "I'm not sure who to direct my remarks to as I will not be able to attend the Planning Commission meeting tonight. I would like to voice my opposition to the zoning change for the above subdivision. It does not comply with the master plan. The whole area is planned as an agricultural zone. I assume that part of the reason is because the 8.25 zone has still not been fixed, so let's get it done. This zone was taken out of use 2 years ago. I believe there's been ample time to fix it, and our lack of action on the zone does not constitute approval of R110. The zone is now making its way through public hearing, so hopefully it is not far off and the rezone can wait." And I assume when she's referring to the zone is making its way through public hearings, I'm assuming she's talking about the fact that we're talking about the 8.25 on our agenda tonight. So I just wanted to put that on the record. That was a comment that Sherry wanted us to share as part of the public hearing process.
Thank you. Were there any other emails that you received on this?
That is the only one that I've received. Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll leave the public hearing open still if there's any other remarks. If there's no other comments at this time, we will close the public hearing and we will turn to the Planning Commission. I think the applicant, we may have some questions for them, so we may call you up in a second. But I'll turn to the Planning Commission and see what comments we may have.
So to me, it should have always been agricultural. The R110 was a mistake. I agree with Sherry. It was a mistake because we were trying to figure out what to do with that 8.25 back a couple years ago. And so most of these little R110s.
Well, these R110s were done before the general plan even
Correct.
required agriculture out there, so yeah.
It was, to me, a mistake back then because the general plan wasn't.
Right.
So I think the general plan calls for 8.25, and I think this one makes sense to be 8.25, but I don't feel comfortable approving that until we have an 8.25. So at this stage, I'm still kind of in the, we should wait and do the right thing, not just get it done.
I appreciate the comments of the citizens and the email from Sherry, because one thing that I look at with this property is the actual purpose of it in the general plan that we have, and that is to keep it agricultural, that is to allow animal rights, and that is to allow those that are around it. We have A1 that's surrounded below, and actually also, I assume that's to the east. And so there is some buffering, some ability that needs to be considered in trying to keep the integrity of the surrounding areas as well. And so, at least with my thoughts, it's the best way for us to keep the purpose of the general plan intact. I do think the R1 zone is not appropriate for this. And right now, we don't have another zone that we could consider that makes sense. That's actually something we can do. So that's some of at least the comments I have on this.
Well, I agree with that too. I am concerned about, I'm not a cul-de-sac fan anymore. The more I've been learning and talking about, I don't like cul-de-sacs. I like connectivity and that, but I don't know what, if we do a through street there, what's in the A1? Or what's the future plan for that A1 for that to be a through street? Is it, I'd rather be a cul-de-sac.
There's no plans for this, so this property right now, let me go back to this one. This property, if you remember, this is all part of the Danzy property. This property was specifically left out. So we'd just be stubbing a road for future development.
Yeah, and when we do bring, if this zoning changes and there's a subsequent subdivision request, one of the standards that we look at is there a need for connectivity to a future undeveloped parcel? And so I think you're right, we should look at whether or not that road would continue through, and does that make sense? And so that will be part of the analysis of the future subdivision.
And I would say, I mean, I know that'll come back,
Yeah.
but at some point, if it's not going to go through, I don't want the dead end. I'd rather have the cul-de-sac than.
Yeah, I think, I agree. I think the adjoining property's large enough that it has many other locations. It can have second accesses and things like that, so.
I do agree about the 8.25. I think that's where we're.
But right now, the only thing that's up for discussion and vote is the zoning. So the whole, connectivity would have to come back at a later
Right.
date. And go through that process as well. So right now, it's just the zoning.
Right.
Which I concur, it's agricultural, needs to stay agricultural.
And just as a reminder, this is a legislative item, so this is a recommendation that we make to the city council. So this would continue on to the city council if we made a motion tonight on this.
And I personally just am not comfortable until we have the 8.25 in place so. for
Agreed.
me,
And I think we're doing them a favor, because I think if we're keeping it agricultural, the best we could offer is 8.5 at that point. So I think,
Yeah.
so I think we're helping them out by holding off until we can have that 8.25 in place.
So Adam, I would just, or whoever makes the motion.
Adam
Lauren's
usually
gonna
does.
make the motion.
Lauren,
Just
I'm
state-
getting Lauren in this
Just
one.
state in your motion, why you're continuing.
Okay. I think I could do that unless Lauren wants to address it.
And then the only other thing to consider or to think about in the future is we've often worked on, when there's properties like this, in buffering between the different developments around it. And obviously, there's larger lots to the south of it, and the lots to the north are a little smaller. So it's just something to think about. And I will turn it to the planning commission to make a motion. I'm pretty sure this one's going to come back, so we'll let you have another chance at this later.
You want to do it?
Motion to continue item 2.3.1 in anticipation of hopefully a change to an 8.25 zone.
Motion by Lauren,
I'll second it.
and second by Adam. We'll start the vote with Adam,
Yes.
Kobe,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Lauren.
Yes.
We'll now move on to item 3.2, which is a request for a text change to the Land Development Code to make various revisions to the 8.25 agricultural zone. This is on for a public hearing as well. It was continued from May 16th, 2019. So this will be a public hearing as well. And we'll turn to the city staff.
Yes. Convenient, right? It's like we planned it this way. So we had this on 2 weeks ago. Again, just to go over a little bit, the 8.25 zone, a couple years ago, we changed the ordinance so that it would no longer be allowed for future rezones. But in the meantime, we're not able to replace it with a different agricultural zone, so we're now bringing it back. This has not changed at all since last week. When we came out of the meeting 2 weeks ago, the one comment that I think that we heard wanted to be changed had to do with the further subdividing, like we talked about, and which doesn't really belong here, the way that we read it. We'd probably put that in the subdivision ordinance or somewhere else. So I think that this ordinance is fine the way it is, and it's what you want. So again, this just brings back the 8.25, puts a maximum density of 2.5, the base density of 1.8, removes any density criteria referring to PUDs, because that was the direction we were given. Oops. That's next. That's it, that's later. And again, because the intent, I believe, was to really just encourage regular straight subdivisions and not little pieces of open space all over the place and little PUDs. The larger lots is really what we were hoping for with this 8.25. So again, no criteria for PUDs. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, and I don't know if I did last time, is that the PUD is a rezone now anyway. It's not a conditional use like it was. So if they wanted to do a PUD, they could certainly still come and ask, but they would have to rezone to the PUD. So you would have a little more latitude at that point if you wanted to do a PUD, if it was a larger piece of 8.25 property, for example. And that would certainly be up to you. So again, it's pretty straightforward. Allows agricultural uses. Again, the base density of 1.8, minimum lot size 10,000 square feet, so. And we did leave the public hearing open in case, so.
Did. Thank you, Bryn. At this time, we'll turn to the public and open up the public hearing again. With there being no comments tonight, I will close the public hearing at this time and turn to the Planning Commission.
I will just say, so you guys don't think that we're ignoring the no further subdivision comments, we have been doing a lot of looking into it and trying to figure out how to do it. It's, yeah. So we'll talk about it, but we are working on it.
I think that'll be a topic with David, or
With Brent Bateman, probably in 2 weeks, yeah.
part of our training.
Cool. Nice.
All right,
I have no comment. No, looks good to
we
me.
need to do it, so.
Yeah.
All right, then we'll turn to the Planning Commission to make a motion.
I recommend to City Council approval of item 3.2 as outlined by staff.
Motion of approval by Adam
I'll second that.
and a second by Andrew. We'll call for a vote, starting with Lauren.
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Kobe?
Yes.
And Adam.
Yes.
Thank you, Planning Commission, and that passes at this time, or recommendation to the City Council for approval. We'll move on to item 3.3, and this is still open for a public hearing, which is a request for a text change to the Land Development Code to allow cannabis production as a conditional use in the A1 and M1 zones. And we'll turn to the city staff.
All right. So as you know, the state legislature changed the law to allow medical cannabis production and sales in the state. So the state law now says that if we have an industrial and an agricultural zone, that we have to allow cannabis production in those zones. So we are doing this change, again, to allow cannabis production as a conditional use in our A1 zone and the M1 zone, which is our manufacturing industrial zone. We had this on last time, and then I've got a little more a text for you this time. Again, this is specifically for cannabis production, not pharmacies or dispensaries. So growth and, again, production processing. So most of this, there is a 1,000-foot restriction from another establishment. That's actually a federal requirement, so that's in there. They're required to have, obviously, all their state licenses. D talks about dust, fumes, odors, that type of stuff. And then they are not allowed to have any signage. The other thing that I read in the state law today was, I'm spacing it. Oh, they have security requirements. They have to be 100% secure, cameras for security. Again, this state statute has a lot of very specific details about the actual facilities themselves and how they have to be set up. This is just the definition, which is great as it is in the code, because we're not even going to try and copy it in our ordinance. And then again, just the table adds it as a conditional use. I put, in case you care, the definition of what a cannabis establishment is, and like all great definitions, it basically uses itself to define itself. So it's, It's a cannabis cultivation facility, a processing facility, or a laboratory, which are all defined like this. So again, the state has got a lot of requirements for this. They actually I just saw in KSL today, they had a meeting last night, I think, with the potential growers, and I think they're limiting it to 10 in the state, I saw, yeah, who they can grow, so it's, they're gonna, yeah. So again, this is the ordinance that we're looking at right now. There will be state dispensaries or pharmacies. Those are gonna be similar to a liquor store, where they will have jurisdiction and they'll put them where they put them. There'll be so many in the state, but we really won't have any say about where those end up, so. Any questions on this?
All right, thank you, Bryn. Since the public hearing is still open, I will turn to the public at this time if there's any comments. And at this time, I'll close the public hearing and turn to the Planning Commission.
Common sense. Yep.
All right, then I will turn to the Planning Commission for a motion, and this is a recommendation to the City Council.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion. We recommend to City Council approval of item 3.3 as discussed.
Motion by Andrew,
I'll second.
and a second by Joy. And we'll start with Adam,
Yes.
Kobe,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Lauren.
Yes.
And that has passed, and at this time, or recommendation to the City Council, and at this time, we'll turn to the Planning Commission for any additional comments. All right, and seeing none, our next City Council meeting will be held Wednesday, June 12th, 2019 at 7 p.m., with the Planning Commission meeting being Thursday, June 20th, 2019 at 7 p.m.
Real quick on that, are we going to be starting
Let's
that
just
one
say
a little?
6. We'll just do our regular meeting at 6, but what we'll likely do is our work meeting from 6 to 8.
Okay.
We only have a couple little items on the agenda, so we'll do like a 2-hour training from 6 to 8,
So for the public,
and we'll post the public meeting at 8 is
Okay,
probably what we'll do,
just-
yeah.
Sounds good. So, and then the last City Council meeting in June will be June 26, 2019 at 7 p.m. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.
Like come in at 9 and work till like 5:30 or something. Oh, 9:30. I'm okay with that as long as it's
Someday
opposite
that property will probably develop and it needs connect somehow.
Hey, Sam, what did you see that article about Salt Lake?
Yeah, right.
I love my cul-de-sac too.
But it has connectivity. There are places where it makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's some beautiful cul-de-sacs on the east side of Salt Lake and the valley and things, so it can be done right. It's just sometimes it can also be done in excess.
It's kind of when it's just all.
Yeah.
When it's not planned.
You live at the end of a cul-de-sac.
That's what I said.
Yeah, it can certainly be.
And they originally came in with that cul-de-sac and then Blake Engineering asked them to.
Oh, they asked. Oh, good. So that's not part of it.
So do you want to set an appointment for next week?
Careful. He's tough. He's tough.
Oh, you missed the dance, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm out of here.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. Tell me again, when is best for you typically?
I typically don't work Fridays.
So